large craters and rubble where lively neighborhoods and buildings once stood. Israel's destruction of Gaza, experts are now saying, is beyond anything they've seen before in this century. To find a historical comparison for so many large bombs dropped in such a small area, we may have to look back to Vietnam or the Second World War, said Mark Garlesko, a military advisor and former senior Pentagon intelligence analyst. And satellite analysis indicates that over 60,000 buildings have been damaged or destroyed in the Gaza Strip, including at least half of the buildings in northern Gaza. And Gaza's civilians have been killed at a historic pace. Even a conservative reading of the casualties reported from Gaza during Israel's bombing campaign has few precedents in this century, the New York Times reported. People are being killed in Gaza more quickly, experts have said, than during the deadliest moments in US-led attacks on Iraq, Syria and Afghanistan, which in themselves were widely criticized by human rights groups. Now, this scale of killing and destruction is down to Israel's use of large weapons in dense urban areas, such as refugee camps. This includes the use of US-made 2,000-pound bombs that can flatten a whole apartment building. By contrast, US military officials often believed that the American aerial bomb, a smaller 500-pound weapon, which is still huge, was often too large for most targets when battling the Islamic State in urban areas like Mosul in Iraq and Raqqa in Syria. Now, as a result of all of this, there's been an exceptionally high rate of deaths in Gaza. More children have been killed in Gaza since these attacks began than in all the world's major conflict zones combined during all of last year, and that's across 24 countries. And that's even with the war in Ukraine, according to the UN's tallies of verified child deaths in armed conflicts. Women and children account for nearly 70% of all deaths in Gaza, even though most combatants which are apparently being targeted are men. Not only is Gaza tiny when compared with other conflict zones like Iraq, Afghanistan or Ukraine, but the densely populated territory's borders have also been closed by Israel and Egypt, giving Gaza's civilians few, if any, places to flee to. Now, when civilian areas are caught up in or targeted in attacks, the threat to life doesn't end when the bombing does. The destruction left in the wake of war leaves people struggling to survive long after the conflict ends, and this is what people in Gaza are currently facing. Decimated healthcare systems along with compromised water supplies alone can pose major public health risks, an expert on modern wars told the New York Times. And Gaza has the added factor of extremely limited aid supplies. And now, with the limited truce deal between Israel and Hamas potentially coming to an end, it's expected Israel may continue its bombing campaign on Gaza, leaving people in Gaza bracing to face more devastation.